You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast.
This meeting behind closed doors in which the president referred to countries like Haiti and countries in Africa as a hole. Obviously, that is not the kind of language that you would expect to come out of the president of the United States. I apologize for using this word here, but this is a quote from the president. Why are we having all these people from whole countries come here? Trump said, this is in the Washington Post, according to these people who are in the meeting.
Why are we having all these people from, you get the point, S-hole countries or bleep-hole countries come here? And he was referring to people from African countries and Haiti.
Well, if you hesitated to use that word, I hesitate to use it myself as an S-hole or hole is what the word that the Washington Post is quoting the president is saying.
So abnormal. This is a freak show. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you disgraced the White House today by what you did to Hallie Jackson, but Donald Trump disgraced the country if what is reported out of this meeting is true.
Televised negotiations over immigration went over pretty well. He sounds He sounds like Jeb Bush on immigration.
Well, and so the base noted.
Or did.
Now we've got this exasperating, borderline racist, stupid comment that's going to blow the whole thing up.
Good evening. The President of the United States is tired of so many black people coming to this country, tired of immigrants from Haiti and Africa being allowed in. Quote, why are we having all these people from whole countries come here? The president said today at the White House. Tired of Africans and Haitians, the president went on to say he would like to bring more people from countries like Norway, whose population is overwhelmingly of Nordic descent, white people in other words. For him to claim that all the countries of Africa are holes is woefully ignorant.
Donald Trump has shown us his dark heart, has shown us his racism. But we cannot normalize the fact that Donald Trump has turned the Oval Office into a hole, into a morally bankrupt place where there are lies and division and racism that comes out every single day.
It just shows that, the president has racist views. I mean, how long do we have to dance around that issue? I mean, whether it's, rapists coming from Mexico, whether it's saying the first president of the African-American president of the United States was not born in the United States. I mean, he has racist views.
You respond to what Donald Trump said today about S-hole countries.
Well, first of all, let's be real clear. This is the most racist, bigoted pattern of comments that we've heard a president make. He has built a whole presidency on race. This is not someone who doesn't know better.
Right.
This is someone who's chosen a path that is absolutely racism with steroids.
And it's personal. I'm a proud holder. My family was called and mackerel eaters. We came from Italians and Irish who were regarded as people from countries. A century ago, we called people slant eyes, Chinese immigrants that we're now ashamed of speaking about in those terms because they came from a country, and now they're a backbone of this country.
CNN in full, complete meltdown mode, 195 times and counting. How many times they have actually said, shh, oh, ha. That's what their news division has become.
This is CNN.
All right, glad you're with us. 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of this extravaganza. If you notice the media in this country, they're all sheep. How many times have I said journalism is dead? It's dead. They all report this one little bubble, and in their little bubble, they keep its little echo chamber, and in the little echo chamber, they wake up every day. I told you it's like their drug. It's their intoxicant. They need their fix when they wake up in the morning. How can I hate Trump even more today? And then they try to outdo it. He's really, 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 really demented. No, you're wrong. He's really, 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 really demented. No. He's going to start a nuclear war. No, he's going to start the biggest nuclear war ever. And they want to outdo each other. He's a and then they go on from there. And it's fine. I don't have any problem with anybody's comments or how they want to run their news network, supposed news network. But if you notice, they go from one crisis, one panic, one meltdown after another. I'll play later in the program. I don't have time now. I mean, Saturday Night Live's open this past weekend. I have watched it now 10 times, and I cry every single time in laughter about liberal Joe and soon to be married liberal Mika. I mean, it is, it's like every time, I've got the vapors. The country, the vapors. It's actually the nut house over there at Conspiracy TV, MSNBC. They all are the same. They will not discuss issues of substance unless they're saying he actually said he has a bigger red button than the other guy said he had a bigger red button, and he said his works. And his bigger red button is scary because he might use it. They don't fear the guy that actually built the red button and means it, and that's a nutcase that needs to be reminded that if he ever does anything, that the United States is going to use the full force and fury of our military and destroy them. Just a friendly reminder. They're not mad at Bill Clinton, who gave them the billions of taxpayer dollars when they promised this is a good deal for American people. They're not mad at that. They're not mad that Obama took plane loads of cash and other currencies and gave the mullahs in Iran, tried to bribe them into liking us. In the process, they're chanting death to America, death to Israel, burning our flag, burning the Israeli flag. They don't care about that either. They literally are a bunch of sheep in a bubble, and they just echo each other constantly, and they try to outdo each other with the same words and the same phrases and the same comments and the same commentary. They're not going to talk about, and then they actually go along with Nancy Pelosi. Barack Obama gives a $40 rebate on his taxes. I did this in my morning minute this morning. A $40, and she's praising it to the hilt. And then she calls it crumbs, these companies that are giving $1,000 and $2,000 bonuses to their employees because of the Trump tax cut plan that was passed. By the way,
a number of companies are attributing the tax bill for being able to give higher wages to their employees, as well as being able to give a number of bonuses to their employees. How do you respond to that?
Well, the number of bonuses that were given, well, one of the bonuses was already in a union contract, and then they added a little more money to that. That same firm just told their employees that they were going to be laying off 1,500 people, and if they wanted to save their jobs, they could all start working 32 hours.
Well, we've created 2 million jobs since Trump's created. We have 2 million fewer people on food stamps since Trump's been president. We have the lowest black unemployment, if you look at demographics, than we've had in 9 years. You have the best labor participation rate in 9 years. You have the highest consumer confidence. Look at a company like Walmart. Liberals hate Walmart. Well, Walmart announced that they're boosting their hourly wage for its U.S. employees to $11 an hour. Now, that's much higher than the, what is it, 7 something an hour. And some states mandate a higher amount based on the state law. But I'm not saying you want to work at an $11 an hour job. But if you're working at Walmart and you need a job, let's say you're a retired person, you want to supplement your income and keep busy throughout the day, you take the job, you get a $1,000 bonus they're giving up to their employees. That's real money. And all of these companies have done it. What's the wage there, Chase, Ethan?
$7.25.
$7.25? Yeah. And so I'm not saying but some people do make a career at Walmart. And they become managers, and then they become regional managers, and so on and so forth. And there is a career track for a lot of people. I like to shop at Walmart. I mean, I have a Walmart, not that far from my house, and I go to that Walmart. I go to Target. I go to Kmart. I go to those stores all the time. I like them because they have everything you ever want, and everything is priced low. And I remember even buying, when I was dead broke, furniture from places like Walmart and Target, for crying out loud, or a bicycle. You walk out with a bike for $120. I mean, and it's a brand new, nice bicycle, and the thing works, and you have a good time. You want weights, you want equipment, you want golf clubs, you want baseball bats, you want clothes. They got it all. It's great. Well, Hannity, you need big designer names. I actually don't. I actually don't want to shop at all. I hate shopping. And for the first time in the U.S. history, here's something the media won't report. The government is actually shrinking under Donald Trump. Daily Wire pointed this out. That unlike, even Republican presidents, Trump in his first year has cut the Health and Human Services cabinet, or the number of people that work for Health and Human Services, by 0.5%, defense 1.1%. I don't like that. Transportation 1.4%, justice 1.5%, energy 2.3%, commerce 3.1%, housing and urban development 3.3%, Department of State 3.8%, labor 4.6%, education 4.8%, Treasury by a whopping 7.5%. Meanwhile, the media doesn't want to focus on any of this. You know, it's just like, for example, it's a convenient excuse. Chuck Schumer's laid down a gauntlet for the president. He demands that Trump approve the Democratic DACA deal to avoid a government shutdown, which is not going to happen. The Republicans have said it's going to be a short-term continuing resolution for now because they don't have the time to get any of this done, or that will prove he's not a racist. You know, listen, everyone can make up their own mind on any of this. You know, but I for somebody that's supposed to hate the people of Haiti, he did, as a citizen, private citizen, twice fund medical relief efforts and surgeries for the people of Haiti. Now, there's a big difference between merit immigration or merit-based system and a lottery system or a chain migration system, because we were promised, just like with Keep Your Doctor Plan and so on and so forth, we were promised by the likes of Dick Durbin that chain migration would end. It didn't end, and we see the results of it now. And then we see the imperativeness and the important part of needing a wall. And for those people, I saw the Department of Homeland Security Secretary literally doing a great job today, you know, being grilled by Democrats, but you know, are we really going to count on Al Sharpton as the conscience of the Democratic Party and an expert on all these matters?
I'm tired of the McAfee. You ain't nothing. You a punk. Now come on, do something. David, yes. You want to be the only on television. The only in the newspaper. The only that can talk. Don't cover them. Don't talk to them. Because you got the only problem. Because you know if a black man stood up next to you, they would see you for the whore that you really are.
All right, I'll get back to that later. By the way, in a move against North Korea, the president has now deployed B-52s to Guam. That's not a good sign. It's not a good answer for North Korea. I'm just warning everybody, although that's not covered by the media only unless he's going to start World War III. This is a narrative that Democrats want to advance against anybody that's a conservative, that they are racist, they are sexist, they are misogynistic, that they are radical, that women and children are going to die, that they want to poison the air, water, and kill children, and that they are going to start World War III. It happens every election season. It doesn't faze me. I will tell all the Republicans this. You know, Democrats are giddy over the prospects of winning back the House. Now, they might win it back, but it's going to be based entirely on their actions this year. Are they going to fund and build the wall or not? Are they going to repeal and replace Obamacare or not? If they did those two things alone, I would argue that, in fact, they will get reelected. But then you got people like Jeff Snowflake out there, you know, comparing the president to Stalin and Mao and other things. All right, we'll get to that. By the way, midterm election losses have been far worse for Democratic presidents than Republicans. I'm going to give you a little bit of those details. Sarah Carter, we're going to do a lot of investigative reporting on the program. Fusion GPS is still investigating Trump-Russia. And I am told that the information that was sent to the House Intelligence Committee will shock the conscience of this nation. And that is a quote. And they have it. And they want to release it. I'll explain. Listen, we know about the D.C. swamp. We know the deep state. And we know they're so deep to be drained from the inside. It's not going to happen. President Trump's doing his best. But the D.C. monsters in the swamp are fighting against everything he does every day. They want to destroy him. All right, as we roll along, Sean Hannity Show, this is the biggest problem, is that the news media goes from crisis to crisis to crisis to crisis to crisis, and they miss a whole lot of news, and it's by design. It's Trump-Russia collusion. It's, oh, my God, he's crazy. Oh, my God, the 25th Amendment. Oh, my God, North Korea. Oh, my God, Charlottesville. Oh, my God, it's just crisis, crisis, crisis. And there's legitimate criticism for the president. I'm not saying that there's not, and I think anybody should be free to say whatever they want. But how is it possible? Do you know that now we have information today that the email investigation into Hillary Clinton is now ongoing and that there are congressional hearings set? Well, in large part, we have been harping on the fact about the fix being in and how it was all rigged by Comey and Strzok. That's not a story you heard elsewhere except for a few of us in the media. And we're not liked by the media. We now had on Friday the indictment of somebody involved in the Uranium One scandal. We have Jim Jordan's 18 questions for the FBI and the DOJ on Fusion GPS. Sarah Carter, who's going to join us at the top of the next hour, has a piece out today that Fusion GPS is still investigating alleged ties between President Trump's election campaign and Russia. Who's paying them now? Took a year to find out that it was Hillary and Hillary running the DNC that paid over $12 million for it. Ron DeSantis and some others are now openly saying that the information that Rod Rosenstein begged Paul Ryan not to have released at the last minute to the Department of Justice that had been subpoenaed, I am told it will take people's breath away, and that there are congressmen demanding that we declassify these documents, that all members of Congress, they know it's coming, by the way. Adam Schiff knows what's coming. And I got a quote from somebody, yeah, they want to focus on hole because there's a storm about to hit them, and it's massive. On top of that, nobody noticed the IG turned over 1.2 million documents. The boomerang is in full effect, but you wouldn't know it if you watch your media.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's sick, and it's getting sicker.
Now, back to the Sean Hannity Show.
All right, 25 till the top of the hour. Toll free on numbers 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. I honestly wanted to throw up after hearing the story last night. We actually reported on it on Hannity and the Fox News channel. Now, you have 13 brothers and sisters. This is in Riverside, California, and a 17-year-old girl who, according to reports, looked like she was 10 years old, and she was able to flee the home and alert the police about how these children were being held and starved and chained to to their beds, and literally the whole place stunk to high heaven. 13 brothers and sisters in total. She ends up just escaping, racing to the police, smart enough to do that. The police said the victims were so emaciated that they were shocked when they discovered, what looked like all children. They couldn't even tell. And some range from 2 to 29 years of age. 7 of them are over the age of 18. 6 of them are children. And the Riverside County Sheriff's Office said it was not known how long some of them were chained and padlocked and shackled before they were discovered. Anyway, the victims were only freed because of this 17-year-old sister who looked like she was 10. The officers thought she was 10. She broke out of the home, grabbed a cell phone, called 911. Police then arrested the parents and charged them with torture, obviously, and child endangerment. They're now being held on $9 million bail, and it is also revealed that the parents filed bankruptcy in 2011. We were up to $500,000 in debt, despite the fact that guy was earning $140,000 a year as an engineer for a top defense contractor. Anyway, these parents were seen renewing their vows at the Elvis Chapel in Vegas in 2016, having been arrested after 13 of their children were found shackled to these beds. And, the parents, charged with these things here, but apparently the renewing of their vows, they did it in 2015 with a splashy dance number, according to reports. Well, what is wrong with these people?
The only way you can describe this is evil. I mean,
that's what I said on TV last. Pure evil.
I'm amazed, this young girl who was able to escape and get away. I mean, God bless her.
Okay, but the police thought she was 10. She's 17. Clearly malnourished.
It's tragic.
How long was this going on? I mean, how are you $500,000 in debt and the guy's making $140,000? What are they doing with the money?
I have no idea.
Well, apparently, 13 kids in California. I mean, no offense, that money doesn't go that far, but that does not excuse their behavior. And I know there was talks of them, like something about God inspired them to do this. So I don't know if
there is
part
one
of some
headline in the Daily Mail that God called on them to keep having children. Some religion, I don't even know what it is, but they starved their 13 children. Did God not tell them to feed them?
When people blame God for acts like this, it's the most reprehensible thing in the world.
And that's why so many people get turned off. I'm a Christian. I was raised a Christian. I believe this country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. But some of these people that just hang their religion on their sleeve, they drive me nuts.
What would be the point of God telling you to have children only to starve them
and torture them and enslave them? That's what they did.
I mean, this is sort of like there was that guy, I guess, was it Cleveland a few years ago?
Oh, remember that?
Who had like three
girls. Yeah, 3 women.
In the basement.
Remember when? I mean, this thing is just horrible. And I know they went into a deep dive into their finances here, and apparently they spent they overspent over $1,000 a month, and he previously worked for Lockheed Martin but left the job in 2010. So I'm assuming that the bankruptcy was because they were out of work at the time, and they moved to California from Texas, and they lived in, they purchased this home in August of 2014 for $351,000. And I'm just wondering, did not a neighbor ever see anybody or knock on the door? And I'm not blaming the neighbors. I mean, we're all busy. But, I mean, it seems odd that so many people would be in that house and nobody knew.
I wonder if there was, one day where, a UPS truck or a mailman came up to the door and maybe they opened up the door and smelled.
Yeah, I mean, they were literally,
curious.
Shackled on their own feces. Oh, this is just insane. Emaciated, tied to bed, shackled. And the allegations, apparently they have their own Facebook page, the couple, and they appear to have had a marriage renewal ceremonies in Vegas by an Elvis impersonator.
Yeah, there's
at least 3 times.
Yeah, there's video of it, and they're just having the time of their lives.
2011, 13, and 15. Their children were present at the ceremonies. Are seeing posing for the photos in 2015. It means, I guess at some point they let them leave the house in matching outfits for the boys and girls. The 10 girls all dressed in pink dresses, white tights, white shoes. The boys in suits and purple ties. And, the haircut, I guess, is like the father for the boys. And the footage of the ceremony, as you pointed out, is online here. Whoever has a wedding with an Elvis impersonator.
Don't bash Elvis, please. I love Elvis. And
all right, I don't care if you love Elvis.
An Elvis impersonator at their wedding is fine, except for these people because they're
the Elvis impersonator is at the ceremony. You're getting married when? Next May?
September,
whenever. I'm not going to be there.
Don't rush things.
I'm not going to be there, so it doesn't matter. I'm notoriously known for not going to weddings.
You could be the Elvis.
All right, you could be the Elvis.
That would be great. We can get you one of those
with
costumes.
your mohawk. No, all right.
The one piece with the
We're losing our focus here. It is so sad to me. I just cannot believe what I'm reading here, how evil and dark it is. It's very hard, and this drives me crazy. I was watching the Homeland Security Secretary today. What's her name? Kristen Nielsen. And I'm watching her give her testimony today, and I'm like, listening to these sanctimonious, self-righteous, idiotic senators, and I'm like, okay, these people, they can't even mention radical Islamic terrorism because they're afraid they're going to offend people. And I'm like, these are people that are strapping bombs on their own kids to kill people. These are people that are training their kids to hate Jews in America and Americans. And, you can't even acknowledge that we have an enemy. And it's like 100 years of human history is wiped out of their brains, where man's inhumanity to man has killed 100 million human souls. And Stalin and Russia and fascism and communism and Nazism and Tojo's the Japan. And how long do I have to keep going here?
I mean, even if you look at North Korea right now.
North Korea is evil. And then so are the Iranian mullahs. Why do our leaders want to bribe murdering dictators? The people in North Korea are starving and broke because they spend all their money on this nuclear program.
The same conditions these kids had, the North Koreans as a whole have, essentially.
Generally speaking, they are starving their own people. That is an absolute fact. And now they're negotiating because they want to go to the Olympics. I'm like, all right, and Donald Trump, how dare he challenge them? Unless Donald Trump gets on his hands and knees and kisses the ring of dictators and mullahs, the media is never going to like him. They've never liked anybody that believes in peace through strength. Remember, Reagan, they hated when he said the evil empire, or bombing will begin in 5 minutes. But they love Clinton. I want to say it's a good deal for the American people. I'm telling you right now, good deal for American people.
My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
It's hilarious. No, it wasn't. He didn't know he was being picked up on a hot mic, but it's certainly better. Hey, tell Vladimir. My last lesson. I'll have more flexibility. And what's worse than that? I can't believe Obama sent literally plane loads of cash and currencies, $150 billion. Just please be nice to us. I know you're saying death to America and chanting it every day, but you don't mean it. I'm like, hell yeah, they do. Absolutely they do. And they don't care. I was watching Secretary Nielsen, and, so the Senate Democrats wasted hours this morning trying to get the Homeland Security secretary to corroborate, this whole comment of the president, because it's their latest thing that they're fixated on. I by the way, I skip to my own beat now. I'm focused on my stories and focused on, I think, the biggest scandal in American history that is unfolding before our eyes. And that is they tried to hijack an election. And they were using phony Russian Hillary Clinton bought and paid for propaganda and lies to do it. And they're getting FISA warrants against Americans and abusing the Constitution and shredding it in the Fourth Amendment rights. I would think that everybody in America cared about liberty and freedom. Just like the story yesterday with James O'Keefe on Twitter. I mean, really? They're going to, they're happy to pick up everybody's private direct messages and brag about it, brag about destroying marriages and brag about, unmasking people with information they should never have access to. So much for freedom of, any kind now. There's no expectation of privacy. Anyway, the DHS is preparing to arrest leaders of sanctuary cities. They missed that because she confirmed that her department has asked federal prosecutors to see if they can lodge criminal charges against sanctuary cities that refuse to cooperate with the federal deportation efforts. Maybe this will push California out of the union. I think there are a lot of people in California now that want to secede from the union and get out.
What do you do if your state becomes a full-blown sanctuary state like New Jersey? They're going to be a super-duper sanctuary state.
No, I think what they're saying here is her confirmation came after California's sanctuary state law went into effect. That's a good question you're asking. And the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director says that those policies put his officers, local communities, at more risk because they have to arrest illegal immigrants out in the community. I mean, and we're still giving them federal dollars when they're not going to obey federal laws. You don't get to pick and choose what laws you break. Let me tell you something. If the federal government, especially me pounding Mueller's corrupt team and me getting so close. A guy told me yesterday from Washington that's very highly connected. No, not the president. He literally said, he goes, "You're so over the target. You have no idea how close you are." Do you realize that since we started doing what we do in our own investigations, now we have confirmation that the Uranium One scandal is now being investigated by the Department of Justice? I've been calling on this for almost a year to begin happening, and longer, since Clinton Cash first came out. Okay, I don't think if we didn't push that hard, it would have happened. That's my own take. The email server investigation, now they're redoing it because the fix was in with Comey and Strzok. If I'm James Comey, I'd be one nervous human being. And I don't think Robert Mueller and his band of witch hunters, Democratic, liberal, Hillary, Obama-loving, donating, anti-Trumpers, I don't think they particularly like what we do every day either. Because what they're doing is despicable. And, but he has a tremendous character, Sean. Why do you put a partisan group of hacks on your special counsel team if you want a fair investigation? Well, that's evidence that you really don't want a fair investigation. And I'm convinced that he has concluded a long time ago there was no Trump-Russia collusion. So he should be investigating the Fusion GPS story. I mean, we'll talk to Mark Meadows later. They should be why is Fusion GPS? Why did Hillary pay for it? Why was the fix in with Comey and Strzok? Why was the exoneration letter being written months before they did the investigation? Why would we ever give away 20% of America's uranium when Robert Mueller himself knew about bribery, extortion, money laundering, kickbacks, and racketeering happening in the country? Why would we ever do that? I'm told that the FISA abuse, the privacy abuse, and I would think liberals would be upset about this with me. Where's the ACLU? They should be joining Sean Hannity. Just like during the election, I mean, I'm talking about Hillary Clinton taking money from countries that abuse, want their money. I don't want that corrupt money. You persecute Christians and Jews. You kill gays and lesbians. You treat women like fifth-class citizens. Well, the only thing that I know now the Fusion GPS thing is exploding. The words I got today, and we'll ask Sarah Carter in the next hour, is that this is the biggest scandal in American history on steroids. Not my words. And it's all, and your media is ignoring it as they go from issue to issue to issue to issue, and they stay in their bubble, and they regurgitate each other. And see how many times CNN, 195 times as of today, saying "shol." Well, I would think this is a pretty big story. So Donald Trump's doctor has just said he's in excellent health and will likely remain so for the remainder of his presidency. And the Destroy Trump media, he actually requested, Donald Trump did, a cognitive test for early signs of Alzheimer's or dementia. Perfect score. They can't believe it. He has moderately high blood pressure, overall excellent health, and his cognitive ability superb. You know what they can't handle? They can't handle truth. That he's not like them. He's not a sheep like them. He thinks for himself. Shocking.
You can't have an immigration compromise if everybody's out there calling the president a racist.
The 5 white guys, I call them, I said they can open a hamburger stand next or what?
What would you do in a debate with him if he tried that? If he come over and leaned over back of you, what would you do?
You'd have to pick him up off the floor.
Holding them accountable. Sean gets the answers no one else does. Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
We burning down the night, shooting bullets at the moon, baby. This is how we roll.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America.
Peter Strzok is selected to be on Mueller's team after all this history, put on Mueller's team, and then he's removed for some pro-Clinton text messages. I mean, there are all kinds of people on Mueller's team who are pro-Clinton. There's been all kinds of stories. PolitiFact reported 96% of the top lawyers' contributions went to Clinton or Obama. But Peter Strzok, the guy who ran the Clinton investigation, interviewed Mills, Abedin, interviewed Secretary Clinton, changed gross negligence, a crime, to the term extreme carelessness, who ran the Russian investigation, who interviewed Mike Flynn, gets put on Mueller's team, and then he gets kicked off for a text message that's anti-Trump. If he kicked everybody off Mueller's team who was anti-Trump, I don't think there'd be anybody left.
That was Congressman Jim Jordan. He'll join us tonight on TV. I'm going to get to Sarah Carter in just a second. There is a new report today. By the way, glad you are with us. Hour 2, Sean Hannity Show. Now, the first witness in the reopening of the Hillary Clinton email investigation is going to be grilled by Congress. And the chief of staff, senior counselor to FBI Director Christopher Wray, now is expected to meet with the House Oversight Committee on Thursday. And Jim Rybicki is expected to testify as part of the committee's investigation into the DOJ's probe of Hillary's email server scandal. Now, this is where we now know that Comey and Peter Strzok put the fix in and literally were writing exonerations, even though they are admitting in their varying drafts that foreign entities got a hold of this information because it was so poorly handled by Hillary Clinton. And, in fact, that gross negligence did take place, but they eventually changed those words. But it was an exoneration before any type of investigation, which means the fix was in. Well, now we have been calling for this investigation to be reopened, and it now is. And now, along with the decision of the FBI Director Comey to announce that there would be no criminal charges against Hillary Clinton. Anyway, the House Judiciary Committee has now beginning to interview these witnesses. Their chairman, Bob Goodlatte, has said that he wants to determine what role the Justice Department and the FBI played in this whole scandal. Now, I don't think any of this would happen. Just like we saw on Friday an indictment in the Uranium One case after we finally confirmed last week that the Uranium One case has been under investigation for months by the Department of Justice and nobody knew about it. I don't think there are many people that have been following this, like me and Sarah Carter and John Solomon and Greg Jarrett and Victoria Tunsing and Tom Fitton, and there's a few of us. And then you have a few brave people like House, Freedom Caucus members that have been following it as well. Now we have new information on the Fusion GPS scandal, the latest breaking news by Sarah Carter, that Fusion GPS is still investigating alleged President Trump collusion with Russia. Who's paying them this time? Because I think we need an answer to that. Sarah Carter joins us now. It's interesting. We have followed all of these scandals, the dossier scandal, the email server scandal, the fix being in, Uranium One. Now we still have the FBI informant that we haven't heard from him in the Uranium One scandal. We knew the fix was in on the email server scandal. Looks like that's now reopened. Uranium One itself is reopened. And the dossier now is exploding before our eyes. And why is Fusion GPS now? They were funded by Hillary Clinton when they hired Christopher Steele. And then, of course, it was used to obtain a FISA warrant. Why are they now still investigating this?
Great question. It's a question that a lot of people want answered as well. I spoke today to Congressman Ron DeSantis, and he wants answers to this particular question. Why is Fusion GPS still investigating these alleged Trump-Russia ties, if that's what they are investigating? I mean, who knows how far Fusion GPS has gone into their investigation? And more importantly, who's paying for it, Sean? I mean, that's the big question. Who is funding Fusion GPS to continue their research into President Trump and his connections with whatever? I mean, we're still left baffled by their involvement in this and the fact that Hillary Clinton, her campaign, as well as the DNC, were funding them. And now it appears that somebody else is funding Fusion GPS to continue its investigation.
All right, so we didn't know when we started all of this work. The first piece that I think you broke was almost a year ago, and it was about surveillance and unmasking and leaking of raw intelligence. Now, that still hangs out there as well. But we finally figured out that the email server investigation, do you use any other word than I use? Was it not rigged by Comey and Strzok? I mean, is there any other adjectives to use that are more accurate?
I mean, who knows? I mean, once they finish this investigation, and I'm talking about the House Intelligence Committee investigation, the Inspector General's investigation into the Hillary Clinton email server, I think what we're going to find out, and it's been reported, and we have sources that have been able to confirm with us that this is going to be explosive, that this is possibly going to be one of the biggest stories of our time.
All right, it's funny you're saying this because I was told last week by my sources that it is breathtaking, the information that the Department of Justice, that Rod Rosenstein was begging Paul Ryan not to send over, what they actually handed over to the House Intel Committee, that it will take the breath of the American people away, the depth of corruption and abuse of FISA for surveillance, among other things. What are you hearing?
It's exactly what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that the information that they've obtained was information that they didn't even expect to obtain. So it surprised even them, even though they were expecting to see things in there that they were already concerned about. It's become even more egregious. And so this is why I believe it's so important that this be declassified under the House Rules Act, which allow them to declassify the information to the American people. First and foremost, what's going to happen is that the information is going to be provided to all 435 members of Congress so that they can review it. I say take it a step further, which is what Congressman DeSantis is saying and a lot of others, like Congressman Mark Meadows, Jordan, and others, declassify it for the American people so that we understand fully what was happening here. I mean,
so in other words, that all this information, this dump that the Department of Justice, well, I guess we have to say Rod Rosenstein particularly, because there was a subpoena by Chairman Nunes, and at the last minute they had to turn it over, but that was after Rod Rosenstein went and begged the Speaker of the House not to release the truth to the American people. You know, Ron DeSantis is not the only one saying, he was quoted in your article, I see, but they want to declassify these documents as quickly as possible so the American people can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just go back when we broke the story first on Fox, on your show, Sean, that these documents were going to be handed over. I mean, it had already been months and months of stonewalling between the House Intelligence Committee as well, and the Department of Justice. So finally, when there was an agreement and that they said, okay, we're going to share these documents with you. I think at that point, now that they've been able to review those documents, and remember, it's not just the House Intelligence Committee that's seen these documents. What I've been told and what's been reported, actually Byron York reported it earlier this morning, is that other members of other committees have now been able to see it, specific representatives, because remember...
Are they actually seeing the FISA warrants that they've wanted to see for some time? Is that what it is?
Yeah, they're actually seeing the FISA documents. Now, remember, those FISA documents include what they call 302s, which are witness interviews, FBI witness interviews, in order possibly to corroborate some of this evidence in the dossier or not.
But don't we know that the dossier was used? And my reporting is, and what I'm being told is that the FISA courts rarely say no. I think they've said no twice. In one case, it was in this case to spy on an opposition candidate. And then I'm told that dossier information pushed it over the top when they went back a second time to get a warrant on Trump.
Absolutely. That's absolutely what I have been told happened. And so the dossier was then, wouldn't just say in part, but was a significant part of pushing that over the top to get the court order for the warrants to surveil members of the Trump team. Now, part of that, I believe, had to do with Carter Page, and I think there's a lot more to it than what meets the eye. And remember, just going back to Carter Page, who volunteered for the Trump campaign, when Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, second in command over at the FBI, was testifying, the only piece of evidence that he said was verified in the dossier that he reported to the committee at that time was that Carter Page had flown to Moscow. But that's very simple, right? I mean, that's an open source kind of thing. I mean, Carter Page was going to Moscow.
Wouldn't he have had to have known that the FISA warrant was predicated in part or substantially on the Hillary Clinton bought and paid for Russian lying propaganda dossier?
That is one of the biggest questions, because one of the things that they're going to want to know is, did the FBI disclose this to the courts that, and if they knew it, did they disclose to the courts that this dossier was being paid for by an opponent? Because in that case... Well,
wait a minute. Wait a minute. Didn't Clinton and her team and Fusion GPS... They wouldn't tell anybody for a year. It's only recently we found out, or fairly recently, that they had paid for it.
Mm-hmm. That's right, in October. So in October, the Washington Post first reported that the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign had picked up where it had been left off by the Washington Free Beacon. So the Washington Free Beacon had paid Fusion GPS to do an op-o research, very simple, on Trump. They dropped that, and then in April 2016, the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC comes in and says, hey, we're going to pay you all these millions of dollars through their attorneys to continue this research, but what we want you to focus on is Trump and Russia. And that's when they brought in Christopher Steele, who's the ex-British spy, who took on this case, who, by the way, heard from a number of sources, was not as incredible as some of these news agencies make him out to be. He took on this dossier work and went ahead and contacted, Russian spies that he had formerly worked with and tried to put this together. And what we found out later on, after this full year of investigation, is that almost all of this, other than what we know McCabe said to the committee, was unverified, flat out false, and wrong. And now we have to ask the question is, if this dossier, which we know now based on our sourcing, was used to obtain the FISA warrants, what was it that the FBI presented to the courts to enable that to happen?
I want to know what they presented the first time and what they presented the second time. And if McCabe, I don't think that's a credible argument that he didn't know. He had to know. And wasn't he testifying under oath at the time?
Absolutely, he was testifying under oath. And you would think either answer, and I mean, this is interesting because Representative DeSantis brought this up, and it's something that I've thought about for a long time. Either way, the FBI should have known when they accepted this dossier, when they accepted the fact that they were going to look into this, that it was being paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC. I mean, that you would think that would be one of their first questions, like, well, who put this together?
Well, I want to know who's paying for the Fusion GPS thing. And now I was told that Glenn Simpson is unhinged in terms of his conspiracy theories and his tactics and his methods, and that all of this is going to come out. I hear that there's a push by even Adam Schiff. He just wants to dump it. One of the things that I also heard today is that, you know, they want to do is talk about the storm because is about to hit the fan, and even people like Schiff know it. I want to ask you about that when we get back, and also about the IG. 1.2 million documents have now been turned over to Congress, and I want to ask what you think is in it and what we can expect. All right, as we continue, Fox News contributor, investigative reporter Sarah Carter is with us. I'm told even Adam Schiff knows that it's all about to hit the fan. And he's just trying to come up with any means possible to counter what is now pretty explosive information from ever getting in the hands of the American people. Now, on top of that information that the Justice Department handed over to the House Intelligence Committee, now we have the Inspector General report that has been going on, over a year now? And apparently they handed over 1.2 million pages of documents to Congress?
Absolutely. And I think what we're going to see is, and I want to go right back to what you were saying about Adam Schiff. I mean, it makes perfect sense. And according to the sources, we saw the story come out in the New York Times, right, that tried to backtrack on the dossier. Remember the dossier, there was leaks after leaks about this dossier. BuzzFeed and CNN reported and Business Insider reported that there was all this corroboration in the dossier, and this was before a lot of the information came out. And they said the dossier was the impetus behind getting the warrants. And then all of a sudden we see the New York Times backtrack that story. And then they say, no, really, the reason the investigation began and the warrants and the push to look into this Trump-Russia alleged Russia collusion was because of George Papadopoulos. He was at a bar. He was drinking. He was drunk in London and was talking to.
By the way, that's four-person hearsay. If you want to buy that bull, no court would accept it.
Hearsay. Yeah, no court would accept that. That's a fact. I've been talking to a number of people that are very familiar with the FISA courts. They said there's no way they would accept that as evidence on its face to issue warrants just because somebody made this statement at a bar, and particularly somebody who was drunk. And in effect, there was nothing in that statement that was illegal or was wrongdoing. There was already suspicion that, WikiLeaks had all of this information. And so there was nothing really there. So now moving forward to the IG's investigation with Michael Horowitz, I mean, we're seeing 1.2 million documents that the House Judiciary
Unbelievable.
is now revealing.
All right, Sarah Carter, we're going to have more on this tonight with you. When we come back, Dr. Gorka will join us, and the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, pretty much the only people I trust in D.C., Mark Meadows, joins us next. All right, 25 till the top of the hour. I just talked to Dr. Gorka. I said, I can't ignore this press conference. I got to play it. And so we have him on TV tonight. Eric Trump is going to be on tonight. Greg Jarrett. Also, Sarah Carter has some breaking news, as you just heard. We're going to get into that even deeper. There's more coming and much more. I have been watching, and I have closed caption. I have 3 television sets, and I have been watching your news media. They go from crisis to crisis to crisis. Trump-Russia collusion, Trump-Russia collusion. North Korea is going to start a nuclear war. Then it's Bannon. We finally found something about Bannon we liked. These trash people that we hate. And it turns out they don't cover the other part. Oh, Don Jr. is a patriot. And then it goes from there. Michael Wolff. And then it's S-hole. And they're sheep. Meanwhile, we have the email server scandal now being investigated again. Uranium One, we had an arrest last week. 11 charges. 11. Sarah Carter report. We have this whole issue of the dossier being used to get the FISA warrant. We have the IG now releasing 1.2 million documents. Then we have, the committee of Devin Nunes, the House Intel Committee. They're sitting on information I am told is going to blow everyone's socks off. But no, let's listen to the president. He had his medical report and his doctor. And then I'm going to play the media's questions. And you've got to hear this.
All right, so to start with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you the summary of the President's physical. And so I'll just read through this, and then after I'm done reading this, immediately after the brief, we'll make this available to everyone exactly as I've read it here, and then I'll take a few questions. So, start with. President Donald J. Trump has completed his first periodic physical examination as President of the United States. I performed and supervised the examination with appropriate specialty consultations and diagnostic testing. The exam was conducted January 12, 2018 at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. The purpose of the exam was to provide the public with an update of the President's current health status to ensure the President continues to enjoy all the benefits of good health. This examination focused on evidence-based health screening and disease prevention. With President Trump's consent, I released the following health information. Vitals as follows. Age 71 years and 7 months at the time of the exam. Height 75 inches. Weight 239 pounds. Resting heart rate 68. Blood pressure 122/74. Pulse oximetry 99% on room air. Temperature was 98.4. Physical examination by system to include any studies that were done by system. Eyes, the President's uncorrected visual acuity is 20/30 bilaterally with corrected visual acuity of 20/20 bilaterally. His visual fields were normal. Fundoscopic exam was normal bilaterally. His intraocular pressures were normal, and no ocular pathology was discovered. Head, ears, nose, and throat. Normal exam of the head, ears, nose, mouth, and throat. Dental exam. He has healthy teeth and gums. There were no other dental findings. Neck. Normal thyroid exam. No noted lymphadenopathy. Auscultation of his carotid arteries were normal. Pulmonary exam. His lungs were clear to auscultation. A screening low-dose CT of the chest demonstrated no pulmonary pathology. Cardiac exam. Heart exam was normal. Regular rhythm. No murmurs or other abnormal heart sounds were noted. His ECG, or commonly EKG, was normal sinus rhythm with a rate of 71, had a normal axis, and no other significant findings. He had a transthoracic echocardiogram done, which demonstrated normal left ventricular systolic function, an ejection fraction of 60 to 65%, normal left ventricular chamber size and wall thickness, no wall motion abnormalities. His right ventricle was normal. His atria were grossly normal, and all valves were normal. He had an exercise stress echocardiogram done, which demonstrated above average exercise capacity based on age and sex, and a normal heart rate, blood pressure, and cardiac output response to exercise. He had no evidence of ischemia, and his wall motion was normal in all images. Gastrointestinal exam. He had a normal exam, no masses, no hepatomegaly or splenomegaly. He had a normal optical colonoscopy done in 2013, June of 2013, that demonstrated no polyps or abnormal findings, and because of that, a repeat colonoscopy was not indicated at this time and will be deferred until his next periodic physical exam. Genitourinary exam was normal. Extremities and musculoskeletal. Pulses and good capillary refill in all extremities. He had no swelling or edema. Neurological exam. Examination of the cranial nerves, cerebellar function, deep tendon reflexes, motor function, and sensory system were all normal. A cognitive screening exam using the Montreal Cognitive Assessment was normal with a score of 30/30. Dermatologic exam, normal, no evidence of melanoma, basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, or any other significant dermatologic diseases.
That is, the president's overall health is excellent. Now, you're going to hear your news media. They cannot actually mentally absorb the fact that there are people that don't think in their groupthink way that they do, that are not sheep, that live in a bubble, that echo each other. These questions are unbelievably revealing. Listen.
Yes.
Thank you. 2 questions for you. Number one, there have been some questions as part of your exam. I'm wondering if you talked to the president about this, about the president's mental fitness. He has pushed back on that, calling himself a staple genius. Can you assess the president's mental fitness for office?
Absolutely. So many of you may have picked up on the fact that we did do a cognitive assessment as part of the exam. And initially, I had no intention of including a cognitive assessment in this exam because, to be honest with you, per all the guidelines that are out there, it's not indicated at this time. A lot of the guidelines would suggest that you do cognitive screening questions, and that if you have a positive or concerning answer in the screening questions, that then you engage with a cognitive screening tool. So I had no intentions whatsoever of doing that, like I said, because I didn't feel it was clinically indicated. And part of the reason I didn't think it was clinically indicated is because I've spent almost every day in the president's presence since January 20, 2000, or last year when he got into office. And I've seen him every day. I see him 1, 2, sometimes 3 times a day because of the location of my office. We have conversations about many things. Most don't revolve around medical issues at all. But I've got to know him pretty well, and I had absolutely no concerns about his cognitive ability or his neurological function. So I was not going to do a cognitive exam. I had no intention of doing one. The reason that we did the cognitive assessment is plain and simple because the president asked me to do it. He came to me and he said, is there something we can do, a test or some type of screen that we can do to assess my my cognitive ability? And so I looked into it, and once again, and my initial question was that I didn't think it was indicated and I didn't think we should do it. After looking at some of the guidelines, there are a few guidelines out there that lean in the direction of potentially doing it. The Medicare guidelines and some of the NIH, National Institute of Aging, they've indicated that it might be a good thing to start doing for most patients in the future. With that in mind, I went through and I looked at a variety of the cognitive assessments that were available. Most of them are very simple, very short, and I think that's the goal actually for primary care providers in doing this, is to keep it simple, keep it short. We picked one of the ones that was a little bit more involved. It was longer. It was the more difficult one of all of them. It took significantly longer to complete, but the president did exceedingly well on it. So that was not driven at all by any clinical concerns I have. It was driven by the president's wishes, and he did well on it.
So to follow up, the president's personal doctor memorably said during the campaign that he would be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency. Do you agree with that assessment?
I'm not going to comment on that. My job is to basically give you my assessment of President Trump today, and I'm not going to make any comparisons with presidents over the last 200 years or anything.
Dr. Jackson.
Yes.
There was an incident recently where the president appeared to slur his words while giving an address. Did you look into what the cause of that might have been at all?
I did. Yeah, we talked about that, and actually one of my ENT consultants was involved in that. We evaluated him. We checked everything out, and everything was normal. We even went so far as to do an ultrasound of his parotid glands and a few other things, and there was absolutely no clinical findings that would suggest. I think the reason for that was, quite honestly, me being up here right now, I think I need a drink of water. But I think that I had given the president some medication, specifically some Sudafed, over the days previous, and I think that I had inadvertently kind of dried up his secretions a little bit more than I intended to, and I think that led to that precipitated it.
Some people have suggested that could be related to dentures. Does the president wear dentures? You mentioned the dental exam.
The president has no partial or dentures of any kind.
Dr. Jackson.
Yes.
Dr. Jackson, thank you. Could you just elaborate in layman's terms, if possible, and you've been doing a great job at that, what you ruled out in these cognitive tests? There have been reports that the president has forgotten names, that he's repeating himself. Are you ruling out things like early onset Alzheimer's? Are you looking at dementia-like symptoms? And then a second question, a lot of doctors at the back end of a physical like to give their patients tips before they walk out the door, things that they should change in terms of lifestyle or behavior. What did you tell this president outside of diet that he might want to change?
Yeah, so I think that cognitive test, it's well respected. It's a test that's used, throughout the United States. Lots and lots of institutions use that test. It's the one that they use at Walter Reed for patients that they feel like they need to do cognitive screens on. So it's a universally accepted test, and like I said, it's a little bit more extensive than some of the shorter ones that are in some of the guidelines. But it screens for all those things. It screens for any type of cognitive issues, Alzheimer's and all all those other things. And so, the fact that the president got, 30 out of 30 on that exam, I think that, there's no indication whatsoever that he has any cognitive issues. And, on a day-to-day basis, like I said before, it's been in my experience that the president, he's very sharp and, he's very articulate when he speaks to me. And, I've never known him to repeat himself, around me. He says what he's got to say, and he speaks his mind. And I've found no reason whatsoever to think that the president has. Yeah, I've found no reason whatsoever to think that the president has any issues whatsoever with this thought process. So,
in the tips part, did you recommend he make any changes, lifestyle, behavioral?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I think that the main thing that we focused on with regards to lifestyle changes are diet and exercise. And if we get diet and exercise right, then weight loss will come. So those are the things that we focused on. I think that there wasn't a lot to go on here, as far as making him healthier in the year coming. Other than incorporating an exercise routine, working on his diet, and having him lose some exercise. Those things will make him much healthier next year than he is now, although his health is excellent right now.
The 25th Amendment, a lot of people in the country have been talking about it. It basically contemplates that a group of Senate-confirmed laymen will weigh in on whether the president's able to discharge the duties of the office. So you, as the president's position, have certainly given this some thought over the years that you've been in your role. On what basis would you, and this is just a philosophical question, advise the cabinet that the president is unable to discharge his duties? How does that bar get met?
Well, I mean, Section 4 of that amendment doesn't really, give me a specific duty or role in there. Like you said, it falls upon the cabinet and the members of Congress and all. I think I'm just like any other member of the administration who sees him and talks to him on a regular basis. If I were to see something that was very concerning and I had concerns about his cognitive ability, or something to that extent that that I would bring that up to the proper people in the chain of command, maybe starting off with the chief of staff or something. And I think that's what everyone else in the administration would do. So I don't think my role as a physician would be much different than any other member of the president's administration if they thought something like that were going on. I just think that once that happened, if it were someone else in the administration, I would immediately be brought into it to make a clinical assessment and see if I agreed with with that assessment. But I think at this particular point, based on my exam, and the cognitive testing that we did, and just my day-to-day interactions with the president, the president is mentally very, very sharp, very intact. And
do you believe he is fit for duty?
Absolutely, he's fit for duty. I think he will remain fit for duty for the remainder of this term, and even for the remainder of another term if he's elected.
How can you determine that for the whole? I mean, you can't determine it 4 years out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't look into it, but based on his cardiac assessment, you can make predictions. You can make cardiac calculations, and you can see what his risk of having a cardiac or a cerebrovascular event might be. And so, if you look at that stuff where he falls out on his cardiac assessment, he falls into a category that portends years of event-free living. So, I mean, sure, I know I myself could have a big event tomorrow. I mean, I don't have that kind. I'm not making that kind of prediction, but I'm saying based on the clinical information that I have right now over the year of me observing him and the few things that have happened with him medically over the year, and in large part on the objective data that we gained from this particular exam, I feel very confident that he has a very strong and a very probable possibility of making it completely through his presidency with no serious medical issues.
Unbelievable. Philosophically, the 25th Amendment. Did you give him any cognitive test? Well, he requested one, and he got 30 for 30 in what is known as not only a standard test, but above standard. Well, why was he slurred? Yeah, I gave him too much Sudafed probably and tried him out a lot more than I thought I should have. Any signs he's forgetting names and Alzheimer's and dementia? It's the most extensive test they've got. You know what they can't handle? That he's not them. They cannot fathom that a conservative, that actually somebody speaks their mind, is not politically correct, and he doesn't think like them. That's it. If that doesn't prove their abuse of bias, I don't know what it is. They jump from scandal to non-scandal. When we come back at the top of the hour, we'll be checking in with Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows. There's a lot of chatter about new information that's going to be coming out in coming days. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Quick break. Right back. We'll continue.
Mr. Strzok says this: I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office. Then there's a break. Dash, it says that there's no way he gets elected. No way Trump gets elected. He says, I want to believe that. You said that in the meeting in Andrew McCabe's office. I want to believe that. But then he goes, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. Now, this goes to intent. He says, we can't take the risk. The people of this great country might elect Donald Trump president. We can't take this risk. This is Peter Strzok, head of counterintelligence at the FBI. This is Peter Strzok, who I think had a hand in that dossier that was all dressed up and taken to the FISA court. He's saying we can't take the risk. We have to do something about it. Now, don't forget the timeline here either, Mr. Rosenstein. Peter Strzok, January 10th, he's the guy who changes the exoneration letter from gross negligence, criminal standard, to extreme carelessness. July 2nd, he's the guy who sets in on the Clinton interview. July 5th, 2016, that's when Comey has the press conference and says, we're not going to prosecute. Clinton's okay, we're not going to prosecute. And then August 2016, we have this text message. The same month that the Russian investigation is opened at the FBI, August 2016. And my guess is that's the same month that the application was taken to the FISA court to get the warrants to spy on Americans. Using this dossier that the Clinton campaign paid for, Democrats paid for, fake news, all dressed up, taken to the court. So I got really just a couple basic questions. Because it seems to me if the answer to any of those two questions, if the answer is yes, if you guys paid Christopher Steele at the same time the Democrats in the Clinton campaign were paying, or if you took the dossier, dressed it all up, took it to the FISA court, and used that as the basis to get warrants.
All right, news roundup and information overload hour here on the Sean Hannity Show. I mean, Jim Jordan has been doing phenomenal work at trying to get to the substance and the truth of all of these scandals that we have pretty much been in the forefront of telling you, because fake news has been focused on the wrong stories and, of course, trying to destroy the president every day. But now we know that on the email server scandal, that investigation has been reopened. I mentioned the Daily Caller article from earlier today. That will certainly at some point include the fix being in, which Jim Jordan was referring to there, and that was that they were writing an exoneration before an investigation. And it even gets worse than that. We know that there was an indictment in the Uranium One case in the Department of Justice. We were able to break last week, in the last week and a half, that there's been an investigation ongoing for months into the Uranium One deal. Nobody knew about it. That's happening. And then, of course, we have the dossier issue. That now is in the forefront. Jim Jordan actually put out his top 18 questions on this. I keep saying it to anybody that will listen. The people that you can trust the most to fight for your agenda and keep their promises are the Freedom Caucus members. Their chairman from North Carolina, Representative Mark Meadows, is with us now. I mean, is Jim like that in real life? I mean, he's pretty intense.
He is intense. I love it when I've got a national championship wrestler on my team.
Exactly, right?
But Sean, you've been at the forefront of this as well. So, kudos to you. You've been covering it when no one else would. But I think Jim Jordan's point is well taken. It's not just Peter Strzok, but it's Lisa Page. And Lisa Page happened to be an attorney that worked for the general counsel for the attorney of the FBI. And so we've got these insurance plans being put forth to go against President-elect Trump at that particular point. And we've just got to get to the bottom of it. Now, I do have some news that I'll break here with you as we're speaking, Sean. I can tell you that we have an investigative task force. Jim Jordan and I are on that, along with Ken Buck and John Ratcliffe and Judiciary and Oversight government reform committees. We requested documents. We gave January 15th as the deadline for those documents from the FBI and the Department of Justice. Today is the 15th, and I'm here to tell you that they've only produced 657 documents of 1.2 million. And the reasons they gave for not giving us the rest of it is just pathetic. And so I can tell you, it is time for you, me, and the American people to come to terms with what
these are more
an FBI's cover-up.
So these are more documents that you want from the Department of Justice. Now, I know that the House Intelligence Committee recently, at the last minute, last hour, even after Rod Rosenstein apparently went into Paul Ryan to beg that they not have to turn it over to the House Intel Committee. But there was I'll call it a document dump. And my sources are telling me it's breathtaking, the abuses that have been discovered in just the short time that they have had to go through some of that information. We also have 1.2 million pages that have been handed over in terms of the Inspector General's report. You're saying this is more information you're requesting specifically and on top of this investigative task force that they don't want to hand over again?
That is correct, and you're right, is some of the information, according to sources and people with knowledge of the particular documents, say that indeed not only is it breathtaking, but it's very revealing in terms of the motives and operation of the FBI and Department of Justice. Now, let me give you 3 reasons why they withheld information from the Oversight Committee. One is, quote, attorney-client privilege. Well, I'd love to know which attorney and which client they're talking about. The other is said non-relevant information. Well, let us be the judge of that. And the final one is information deemed to be law enforcement sensitive. Their idea of, well, we want to keep it within the DOJ and FBI. Those dogs won't hunt. I can tell you that none of those are constitutionally protected privileges from Congress, and we're going to get to the bottom of it.
But this is supposed to be about checks and balances. They're supposed to be transparent. And it seems that we have this mysterious reluctance and resistance, and it's coming directly from the top in the DOJ. And I'm not talking about Jeff Sessions, but I'm talking about people like Rod Rosenstein and Andrew McCabe and then over at the FBI. Why is the FBI not being transparent? I mean, look, do you agree with me that the information, the varying incarnations, if you will, of the exoneration of Hillary? Number one, the original document said that, yeah, foreign intelligence services were able to hack into Hillary's emails. And then, in fact, they got the information, probably the 33,000 emails that were subpoenaed by Congress and then deleted by Hillary. And then just to make really, really sure, they bleach bit it and acid washed it. And then to make really, really, really sure, then they busted up devices that might have had the information and took out the SIM cards. But was the fix in when Comey and Strzok decided to write an exoneration of Hillary months before they did the investigation? That sounds like the fix is in.
Well, you can't write a not guilty decision 2 months before interviewing witnesses and certainly before interviewing Hillary Clinton. I mean, when you look at that, you can't say, well, she's innocent long before you finish the investigation. And that's extremely troubling. And so there are a number of questions, not just the 18 questions that Jim Jordan posed, which are very accurate and to the point. But there's a number of questions, at what point did the FBI and DOJ get involved in this dossier? Who were the ones that actually were coming alongside the dossier and saying it was factual? I think what you'll find out in the coming days is that those that were aligned with the Hillary Clinton campaign were the ones that were saying that the dossier was true, and the FBI.
Whoa, hang on a second. So wait a minute. Hillary bought and paid for the dossier. And they'll say, well, Republicans worked with Fusion GPS first, but they didn't have Christopher Steele being paid by Fusion GPS, which is where all the Russian propaganda. So let me get this straight. Hillary fixed an election, a primary election, and gets away with it, and no repercussions whatsoever. Even Donna Brazile acknowledges. Then Hillary Clinton uses Russian lies and propaganda, and we're all worked up in this country for a year about potential, although no evidence, Trump-Russia collusion. But she gets phony Russian propaganda, salacious information, tries to win over the American people by leaking that to the press. And then that phony dossier she bought and paid for, have you confirmed has been used in part or substantially in part to get the FISA warrant?
Well, there are a number of members who believe that it was a substantial part of that. That's one of the reasons why we need to make sure that all members of Congress are read into the investigative matters within Devin Nunes' body of work. But there are a number of members who believe that that was a substantial part of the FISA warrant. And if you're going to rely on that, and if it's verified by friends of Hillary, then we've got a real problem in this country with the way that we are searching and spying on.
Well, wait a minute. Doesn't it sound like the FISA warrant was obtained through inaccurate, partisan propaganda, paid-for propaganda?
Exactly. When you're looking at it, a $12 million paid-for opposition research from one party, and the FISA warrant gets used as part of the justification for that comes from a Democrat document. There's a problem with that. And
now, all right, so Ron DeSantis told Sarah Carter today, and she was just on before you joined us, and this, I think, is very, very key and very important. Number one, Fusion GPS is still investigating this. I want to know who's paying them now, or are they doing it because they're doing it on their own? Now, the documents that the DOJ released to the House Intel Committee, Ron DeSantis is demanding that they be declassified and they be given to the American people. These are the ones, I'm told, that are so explosive that nobody could even imagine the depth and breadth of FISA warrant abuse and other things. Do you know what the other things are, and have you heard that?
Well, I have heard some of those. You know, at this particular point, you know that Jim Jordan and I came on and we requested that all members of Congress be able to see that. I think that's the first step. If indeed there's not anything that is of national security concerns, then certainly looking beyond that so the American people can judge for themselves is the next step. But I've sent a letter to Chairman Nunes because what I have heard are a number of particular FBI, DOJ, and maybe even State Department officials have been sharing inappropriate information with mainstream media to put out a false narrative. Now, all we can do is get the facts, and hopefully that is not the case, but I can tell you that narrative continues to go unverified, but certainly is growing in confidence that is what has happened.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. He is the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. Basically the only people that I trust in D.C., a couple of senators, not many. Mark Meadows is with us. Quick break, right back. We'll get to the bottom of this. Also, the latest, the IG has dumped 1.2 million documents on Congress. When will we, the people, get to see those? We'll ask Congressman Meadows that when we come back. All right, as we continue, he is the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Congressman Mark Meadows, North Carolina. So the independent, what do you call it, the IG...
Right.
Has now released 1.2 million documents to Congress. What do we know about these 1.2 million? Because the Inspector General has been tasked with looking into a lot of potential corruption as it relates to all of these matters we're discussing.
Well, he has, and we know that some of the information that we even currently have now actually came as a result of the Inspector General Horowitz is his name, his work, when we have the Peter Strzok text messages and the Lisa Page text messages. Some of that originally came from his investigative work, and so we are believing that this particular report that will come out probably in March, will start to highlight a number of other concerns because it's supposed to be an internal, independent investigation of the Department of Justice and FBI. Now, those documents, in fact, even just the 657 documents that we got in committee today, we have staff going through those to read in any individual component of that. Generally what you find are on the first release documents is they give you the things that are already being reported. But I can tell you that certainly in 1.2 million documents, there's going to be a whole lot of new additional information that we've got to get out and make sure the American public knows.
I think, transparency is everything. Now, I'm told that in some of these committees and some of these Democrats are petrified and scared to death because of what's coming out.
Well, they should be, and I mean they've been having their Russian narrative their way for the better part of a year now. The Russian narrative, it could be that the only people that actually involved Russians was the dossier and the Hillary campaign, as they sought to get informants from Russia to spin a particular narrative.
Now, I hope there's a certain sense of urgency, because I'm sick of being lied to for a year, and the media have been their willing accomplices in all of this.
Well, there is a urgency. I can tell you that Jim Jordan and I have put in a request to Chairman Nunes. We have put an internal deadline of this Thursday for a decision to be made. We believe it's time for us all to be able to see the documents in the same context that our fellow colleagues are seeing them.
All right, Congressman Meadows, you're not the problem in Washington. You're part of the solution, and we appreciate you being with us. I heard Jordan is sick. And don't go near him, because he's going to give you the flu, which is the worst in 13 years. This is my advice to you. Stay away from him.
I'll try to stay away, but we'll keep fighting the fight. And thank you, Sean, for fighting the fight there for us as well.
So this is now about the truth. This is now about probably a far bigger scandal than anybody ever thought, because it's now impacting our presidential electoral process. And it goes way deeper than anybody knows, especially the abuses of power and the false narrative that we've been fed. Thank you, sir, for being with us. 800-941-SEAN is a toll-free telephone number. All right, 25 down till the top of the hour. You know, we actually showed this tonight, last night, as our video of the day on Hannity on the Fox News Channel. I think it's the funniest video we've ever played. And it was the opener Saturday Night Live. I mean, you know, because of time constraints on TV, you can't play the whole thing. It is Morning Joe, Liberal Joe, and his soon-to-be bride Mika. I was crying. It's so funny. You'll even get it by listening to it. Listen here.
Welcome to the Nut House.
Good morning.
Good morning. Great song. Who is that?
Joe, you know who it is.
Oh, yeah. It's me. That's my original jam. Welcome to the Nut House. I'm Joe. That's Mika. Willie Geist is here just smiling along.
Good morning.
We just played that song live last night at Prohibition. Mika was there.
I come because I have to.
You come because I tell you to.
God, can we not be this self-aggrandizing this early in the morning? You're disgusting.
And you're foul.
I'm going to barf all over you.
Let's get to the news. President Trump is at it again. He's using a deeply offensive word when describing Haiti and some African countries.
Can you just...
Joining me to break this down is Chair for the Center for African American Studies at Princeton, Eddie Glaude. How you doing? Eddie, this is a blatant example of inflammatory racist language. Why don't GOP leaders condemn this immediately?
Well, first...
Because, Eddie, you've studied this stuff extensively, okay? I mean, can you imagine any other president making comments like this? What's your take?
I mean,
this is not the first time that he said something like this. Is this a surprise given his comments in the past? He's talking about Haitians. He's talking about Africans. And the question is this: when will they get to speak? When is it their turn? How long will they be silenced?
I personally...
Eddie Glaude, great points. Thanks for joining us.
The White House is a cesspool. Okay. I can't, and I can't.
You know, hey, this one, Mika's been at an 11 for the past year. Okay, I think you're hangry. Okay, this one's hangry. Come on. Hey, who? Calm down. What do you want to do for lunch?
I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you want. You're a steak Florentine gal.
Yeah? You gonna feed me my meat? Because you're a dirty dog?
You know I am. Rough.
I mean, it's the fun. Isn't that the funniest thing you've ever seen, Jason? I mean, you're crying about this thing.
Yeah, I don't normally watch SNL, but when I saw you play the clip last night, I had to watch the whole thing, and it's gold.
They have captured those two. I mean, it's like every morning she has the vapors. Oh, Donald Trump. Oh, the vapors. It's like they bubble and fizz and freak out every morning. It's a mental breakdown on TV. Pretty accurate. All right, that's enough of that. Oh, he thinks he's a rock star. It's unbelievable.
I mean, so, like they played a parody of the song in the beginning.
Yeah, Welcome to the Nut House,
yes.
which is funny.
Which is accurate.
It really is so accurate. I mean, I know that in their probably deep down in their hearts they think they're right, and they can't be any more wrong. I mean, they are the quintessential example of people that want to be liked, loved, and accepted by the establishment, media establishment, the elites, the rich, the famous, the connected, the liberal Washington establishment. They're dying to be loved and accepted. And it's pathetic. I see two people that live in utter fear and a state of constant disgust. They have so overplayed their hand in their attacks. That's why the parody works. All good humor is rooted in truth.
One of people closest to Donald Trump during the campaign saying he's got early stage of dementia. He repeats the same stories over and over again. His father had it, and it's getting worse, and not a single person who works for him doesn't know he has early signs of dementia. This is so unbalanced. This is so... he is not well. He looked like a thug. He looked like a goon. You look at the handshake. You look at this. Just what a thug! What an embarrassment! Look, he's mauling him like an idiot.
They see no talent. They see absolutely nothing behind the eyes that they can work with.
This is not funny. This is really bad. Just for the record, we're all really nervous. This presidency is rotten all the way to the core and right to the top.
Totally unprepared for the job of being president, unfortunately not knowing what he does not know.
And possibly
all right, I can't take it
mentally.
I am told that Joe thinks he should be president. I want Joe to run. Let him run. Oh, yeah, you'll see. They'll get on what?
Will Jeff Flake be his vice president?
He'll probably still pick Snowflake of Arizona to be the VP candidate. All right, let's get to our phones. Dan, Traverse City in Michigan. What's up, my friend? How are you?
Good, Sean. How you doing?
I'm good. What's happening?
Hey, Sean, I want to go to Mueller real quick. And here's proof that he's not an honest investigator, or let's just say lead cop. A lead cop... Someone hires Mueller and says, there's evidence that Trump colluded with Russia. So an honest investigator says, okay, I'm going to start investigating and follow the evidence. So Mueller kicks off. He does 3-4 months. He sees no evidence. Trump's the person of interest because that's when they hired how they hired him. And then all this evidence comes out to another person, Hillary Clinton, in her campaign. And so the 3-4 month point, an honest cop following the evidence would go back to the police chief, Rosenstein, and say, hey, look, we need to hold a press conference. There's no evidence that Trump colluded. We need to say he is no longer a person of interest, but all this evidence has come out that maybe Hillary...
Let me give you the first example why I know that Mueller... Well, I mean, you could look at his team, right? And Andrew Weissman, 9-0 failure, put tens of thousands of people out of work and put innocent people in jail, 9-0 Supreme Court against them. On top of that, Fifth Circuit overturns them. I'll tell you why they got it wrong, and I'm the only one, I guess, that has interviewed and taken the time to go to London and interview Julian Assange. And I don't really care what people's opinion of Julian Assange is. That's neither here nor there to me. But the reality is WikiLeaks has never gotten information wrong. Now, you may not like that they put it out there, and I'm sure it pisses a lot of people off. But I think the release of the information warned the American people just how god-awful corrupt the Clinton cartel was. And that's good for the country that happened. Now, I don't want sources and methods, especially America's sources and methods going against evil, released. And that's a different discussion for a different day. Now, if Robert Mueller wanted the truth, he wouldn't have put together the team he put together of basically the merry band of Clinton, Obama, DNC donating Trump haters. But he also would have... The first call he should have made was to Julian Assange. Where did you get the information from? Now, there's only one person in the world that we know for sure might be able to prove beyond any certainty, any doubt, where that information, where those emails came from, and that's Julian Assange.
Can I add one thing?
Why wouldn't they subpoena him? Why wouldn't they bring him in? I've been told that Mueller never called him. Go ahead.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Okay, and to pick up on you. If a lead cop if the police chief sees that he's ignoring the evidence because he's on a corrupt prosecutorial path, the police chief fires that cop because he's ignoring the evidence. He's now trying to ramrod somebody.
That's correct.
So the fact that someone cannot fire this crooked cop is mind-boggling.
Absolutely. Let me tell you something. It's corrupt from head to toe. It's all corrupt. Inside and out corruption. That's all it is. All right, thank you, Dan. Back to our phones. We go to Gold Canyon, Arizona. Greg, I guess that you have Senator Snowflake is leaving soon. Who do you like to replace him?
Well, actually, I'm still in the process of deciding that. I'm definitely torn between Joe and the other two, but I'm still...
Kelly Ward is one, yeah. Listen, I like Joe Arpaio. I like him a lot. I just think that you don't start a Senate career at 85. He's had a great career.
I agree, and he is a little bit old, which is one of the reasons why I'm not leaning that way. I like him an awful lot, but I don't want him in the race. But in terms of Senator Snowflake, those comments that he made, the stuff that he said in the last couple hours, trying to walk back the advance copy of the speech, it's just as weak as the actual statement that he's trying to walk back. He's not a favorite of mine, and I won't be voting for him. I wouldn't have been voting for him if he was running.
He never would have had a chance, and his approval rating, I hear, is in the single digits. So that's a good point. Back to our phones. Daniel in Dundee, Michigan. Next, Sean Hannity Show. How are you?
Hey, Sean, I'm all right. I probably feel a lot like Donald Trump. You know, the Democrats just don't like me. They continually say he has to repeat himself. And, you know, I have found that I've had to repeat myself every time I'm dealing with a spoiled brat kid that just won't listen. You know, you got to tell them, don't jump on the bed, don't run through the house, don't throw rocks at the window. And you got to tell them over and over again. It almost appears like I'm a nag. So I can understand how Donald Trump feels. You know, he just can't get the truth through to him. It's just no matter how many times he repeats it, they just don't want to hear it. So I probably feel a lot like Donald Trump does.
Listen, I purposefully repeat certain things so that people can grasp them and understand them. You know, I have full, complete understanding of, you know, that radio and television are utilities to people, and it does take a certain amount of repetition before people begin to fully, completely understand. Like when we have
Sean, do you know anybody that can listen or watch CNN for more than 15 minutes without absolutely puking? I mean, I just...
Yeah, I do. The Clintons and Obama can, I'm sure, and Valerie Jarrett and Samantha Power and all the Trump haters out there.
Business. It's got to be George Soros money because what kind of news operation?
Not a news operation. I think they said 138 times they said shh hole on the air. It's unbelievable.
This is CNN.
All right, Daniel, thank you. Evelyn is in Greensboro in North Carolina. How are you?
Hi, Sean.
Hi, Evelyn from New York. I busted you.
I'm in North Carolina. I'm a transplant.
No kidding. Your accent is as thick as Linda's.
I know, and I've been...
By the way, Linda's playing hooky today. She's not at work today.
Well, I'm playing hooky tomorrow. We're having 2 inches of snow. We don't play in North Carolina in the snow.
2 inches of snow. Oh, my gosh. By the way, I'll never forget, like once a year, Atlanta and Huntsville, Alabama, once every few years, we get shut down because of an inch of snow. And I'm like, okay, guys, this is nothing. This really is nothing. But, you know, if you're not used to driving in it, I get it.
And all the bread and milk...
it's all gone.
Places.
Yeah, it's gone. Well, listen, there's usually, you go to a beer distributor and pick up some beer because that'll work better for you.
Well, I've been in North Carolina 36 years. I'm not turning southern for anything.
And everybody you meet says, where in New York are you from, don't they?
Always. And
always.
Say, you have an accent. I reply back, so do you.
What's on your mind today, Evelyn? You sound like a wonderful lady.
Well, I love you, Sean, and
Thank you.
I listen to you, and I watch you every night. And I want to remark about these really disrespectful people who are sending these email messages and voicemail messages. You know, you can kill kittens and everything. And
the Hannity hotline. No, they said every time I open my mouth, I kill a kitten.
Yeah, well, my cat and I watch you every night, and she's perfectly healthy, and we're fine watching you.
I'm not in the business of wanting to kill innocent little animals. I mean, I actually like animals.
Oh, I know.
You know, listen, here, it's a sampling of the people that listen that hate the show. And I'm just glad they watch. I mean, and a lot of people say that, oh, how do you take that? It must really bring your self-esteem down. And I'm like, no, it's fine. I can handle it. Whatever the switch is of needing to be liked by my fellow people in the media, I frankly can't stand these people. That's why I've never been to a White House Correspondents' Dinner. I don't want to be around them, ever. And they don't like me, and I don't like them, so it works out perfectly.
Take it from where it comes, Sean, and that's my advice to you. Take it from where it comes. They're ignorant, uninformed people.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. Well, listen, we love you. Thank you for being out there, Evelyn, and God bless you and your family, okay?
You too, Sean. Bye-bye
Appreciate
now.
it. All right, that's going to wrap things up for today. We have an amazing show tonight. A lot of huge topics we'll be covering, including the worst evidence of derangement coverage of the president, the media today, and their focus and fixation on the president's health. Also, Sarah Carter with breaking news. We'll get to that. All of our investigations we've been calling for now in full play, but your media ignores. Greg Jarrett, Sarah Carter, Eric Trump tonight will join us. Hannity, 9 Eastern. News you won't get anywhere else. And we'll see you back here tomorrow.